You only lose when you quit. And if you're still in the game, that's really what it's about. I have this potential. I feel it. And it's just not being realized.
You need to talk to that guy to save this city, man. When the playoffs come, he needs someone to talk to because
mentally.
Yeah, dude, like it's not a skill, right? And that's a prime example.
What if you build your mental skills the same way that you build your physical skills and you're proactive? You don't know Forrest Griffin?
No, I don't.
You're a fake fan. You don't.
Yeah.
The break talk, you're taking it to another level. Better get ready with your host, Adam and Loretto. The dopest show that you ever heard, ever seen. The podcast about nothing and everything. Yeah. Break the break talk. Yeah. Break the break talk.
Our guest today is the founder of Mindlock Mental Training and the former captain of Canada Taekwondo. Welcoming our guest, Dylan Nadler.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Dylan. Long time no see. Last time I saw you, actually, you were the mental performance coach for the volleyball team I coach, man. And man, did you ever help us out, man? Our boys needed it more than ever. And I mean, you took it to another level and brought our team to another level. And we got to get into it today of how much of an impact the things you do help athletes nowadays. So I can't wait for this. It's going to be awesome.
Let's do it. Yeah, it was fun to come up and work with the boys.
Yeah. They're a great group, man. It was it's great learning that side of things because like even when I played sport, like I went through those things and I just don't think that there was much of an avenue where there was like people like you that actually were able to help young men and girls and women in their sport, right? Like it's just something that's not talked about enough. And I think needs to be because it's a huge role in sport everywhere. Absolutely everywhere.
Yeah. There's it's not mainstream enough yet. I think it'll get there at a certain place where kind of working on the mental side of sport is a little bit more popular. But that's kind of like my whole big thing is that there's a huge discrepancy these days between like the impact of the mental game on sport compared to the emphasis we place on actually like developing those mental skills, right? And when that discrepancy exists, a lot of the time underperformance stems from that. So, that feeling of being prepared, but kind of dropping the ball and not performing at the level that you're kind of expected to, usually it comes from that discrepancy between, how much work went into the physical side of the training compared to the mental side. And when that's not even, we run into problems that we see all the time.
You should, I don't know if this is ever a reach or whatever, but we got to get you to a guy named Austin Matthews. And you need to talk to that guy to save this city, man. When the playoffs come, he needs someone to talk to because
mentally.
Yeah, dude, like it's not a skill, right? And that's a prime example of like how important what you do is nowadays because like between media and pressure and everything that it involves with sport, there's so much that build up in athletes' heads. Like before this year, I think Aaron Judge even had, a whole thing of like, playoffs come around and Aaron Judge goes missing, right? And obviously Matthews, we know that the fact that he doesn't show up in the playoffs, but it's not skill. It's not that they're lacking skill. It's just like mentally, I think that they're in their head and maybe they do need more resources or needs to be talked about more in this side of sports. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like especially at the highest level, like NHL, NBA, like every team has a sports psychologist that's kind of on their roster. But the problem, at least what I've noticed or what I've heard kind of firsthand, is that they're kind of seen as a little bit more like clinical. Like they're going to treat, if you're feeling depressed or if you're really struggling with something, then you can book an appointment or you can reach out. And that's not necessarily my approach. Like my whole thing isn't that you need to wait until there's a big problem to kind of seek out the help. It's like, well, what if you build your mental skills the same way that you build your physical skills and you're proactive and you're excited about it and it's consistent, right? So when it's seen as more of a medical thing, it's not that Austin Matthews doesn't have a sports psychologist on the Leafs. My question would be, how often does that psychologist meet with the athletes? Do the athletes have to book with them, once in a while if they feel like they need it, which is so hard to do because your ego's involved and it's not even, it's not my mind. I just need to fix this or fix that. It's like my approach is a little bit different, which is like make it consistent, make it kind of fun to do and everybody's participating in it at the same time and you kind of take the stigma out of it. But that's the problem. It's not that the resources aren't there at the high level. At a lower level, the resources aren't there. Like the average team doesn't have somebody like that. But even the teams that do I would love to know how often they're actually being utilized, because if I had to guess, it's not nearly enough.
The Break Talk podcast is brought to you by Skilled Trades College. Looking to get involved with the trades but don't know where to start? Where can you find all the info, Loretto?
Head over to skilledtradescollege.ca and get the skills to pay the bills. How much would you see an athlete? Like what? I know it might range from different sports and athletes and all that stuff, but like how often would you talk to an athlete?
On the low end, once every couple of weeks. On the high end, once a week. But depending on the situation, like if it's a fighter and we're deep into a fight camp, or there's a big event coming up, it could be like multiple times throughout the week, right? It just kind of depends on the situation. But for me, like at bare minimum, like it has to be once every couple of weeks, or else too much time passes by. Like imagine you only went to the gym like once a month, right? Like it's okay. You'll be better than the person that never works out, but you're not going to notice a ton of progress. Now, you don't need to work out 3 times a day because you're going to burn yourself out. So it's not necessarily like more is better, but it's better than nothing, right? So some sort of consistency is important there, at least the way that I see it.
Yeah. So you yourself, you were a former athlete and fighter as well. Where did you and when did you start that? Like I'm assuming that goes back like when you were younger as a kid.
Yeah. My parents put me in Taekwondo when I was 5. And it was like the first sport that I did. I did that and I played house league soccer. Those were like my two things that
soccer didn't work out.
I did. I was pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But
Adam said the same thing. Adam said the same. He played house league soccer and it just we don't talk about that
I was
anymore.
a fat kid. They threw me in net. They're like, save the ball, do something. My parents paid for it. I had to do something, right?
That's funny. I was pretty good. I was better though. I was better at Taekwondo. So my parents put me on when I was 5, and then like I don't know how much you guys know about like the martial arts world, but like a lot of those schools like karate, Taekwondo, like they're very recreational. It's not what you think. You don't just sign up for a karate Taekwondo place and it's like killers off the bat. It's especially nowadays, it's very like you've heard the term like McDojo kind of, right? Like it's a kind of a popular thing. You show up, you get your belts, you pay your membership and that's it. And that's where I found myself. I wouldn't go as far as to call it like a McDojo. Like we were learning good things and good fundamentals, but we didn't do the thing that I wanted to do most, which was actually like compete and spar. Like that was my favorite part. Like I could kick the targets and I could like learn some drills, and I did that for like 5 or 6 years. Like I got my black belt when I was 10. My first one, because now I'm like a 4th degree black belt, but when I got my first black belt, I was 10. And I just like, it kind of hit me one day. I'm like, I don't really like coming here anymore. Like I want to compete, I want to spar, and like the school I was at, they didn't do that. So credit to the master that was there at the time is I think a lot of people would have been selfish and say like, we'll find a way, like we'll figure it out, we'll whatever. But he was honest. He's like, listen, like we don't have the program that you're looking for. Like you want to compete, that's great. We're not that type of school, but he was very connected and he knew like a ton of different instructors and coaches and teams. And he's like, I'll give you a list of the people that I know in the space. Try them out. You have my blessing. Like pick one of those clubs that work for you. I was like, perfect. So then this was like grade 7. So I was like 12. And I had this like long list of places to go to. And I showed up to the first one. I guess at the top of the list it was called Authentic Taekwondo, maybe because it was like an A. It was at the top. So I go in there and I sit down with the coach and, his name's Master Farah, and we're talking and I like the stuff that he's saying and it's like really interesting. And then he's like, well, they're doing a class right now. Like, why don't you just come in and sit? At the time I couldn't do the class because I broke my hand at like the first and only tournament I had done. I like blocked a kick with an open hand, which is like a total no-no. And I broke my hand. So I just couldn't participate in the class. But I sat in with this like cast on my hand and I'm watching the instructor teach the class, and he had everybody lined up in front of mirrors. And he's like, hey, watch, like I want you guys to throw a roundhouse kick, but when you throw the kick, like watch your shoulders, watch your hips, like are you telegraphing? And as he's doing, I'm thinking to myself like, man, like there's strategy to fighting. Like it's not just kick and punch as many times as you can until the referee stops it. I'm like, it blew my mind. I'm like, I have to be here. So we, threw out the list of all these other schools, picked the first one, and that's where I was. So from grade 7, again, I was like 12 years old at the time. That's where I went, and that's where I started the competitive side of my Taekwondo career. And, from there, I didn't have a lot of the fundamental skills. I wasn't nearly where the other athletes my age were, just because they had done it the right kind of way for a long time. So I was far behind, but I caught up pretty quickly.
So you were far behind in grade 7?
Oh, so far behind.
Like, are you actually sparring at that age? Like actually? Like you're hitting kids, like kicking them, punching them, all that stuff?
Yeah, there's rules. Like there's like at that age, there's no headshots. So you kind of keep it to the body. But I think when you reach, they kind of keep changing it. But at like, I think by the 8th grade, we were doing full contact headshots, like knockouts, stuff like that.
That's crazy.
There's a difference between like learning the fundamentals of kicking and punching and being able to actually like spar and fight and compete. So like the athletes that were there, because a lot of us were the same age, like they were at this gym for like, years longer than I was. So I kind of had to learn like the right way to do things. So, I was really bad when I got there and I had a lot to learn, but very quickly I kind of caught up and was able to do a lot of like cool things with it.
Well, you definitely had to buy into it. You were obviously into it, which puts you, like the next step, right? Like if you're saying like you were sitting in a class with a broken hand, you're obviously, you're not just a kid that's just kind of there just because. You obviously wanted to get better, right? Like it's not, you weren't the normal breed is what I'm trying to say. Like a lot of kids wouldn't just sit there at the age of 14 with a broken hand and watch them, like kick in a mirror and watch themselves kick.
Yeah, I think like for me, I had felt so frustrated with feeling like I had this potential. And it's kind of the conversation I had with that coach, with Master Frau, and I said, and he asked me, he's like, well, what's your goal for, in Taekwondo? Like, what do you want? And I thought about it and I'm like, man, I don't care whether it's like provincials or nationals or Olympics. Like, I just want to be like the best version of myself I could be. I'm like, I felt like I was sitting on this potential. Like, that's really why I was so frustrated with the years building up to me leaving that first club and joining the second. I'm like, I've got something. I have this potential. I feel it. And it's just not being realized. So I'm like, I don't care where it takes me, but I need to know that like I maxed out on it. Like I need to know what I'm capable of. So that's why I was so pumped to go there. And even though I was so bad at the start, because I knew I was in the right place, it made it worth it. Like I'll put in the work. I'll do what I need to do. I have the right training partners and teammates and coaches. Like I'll hustle because I know that I'm in the right place where if I do the work, like I will achieve that version of myself that I've been looking for. And I knew that at that point, like no matter where it took me, even though I wanted to go as far as I possibly could, like if I can be at that place where I've kind of maxed out on my potential, like I will be happy.
Right.
So when did you have like that like realization where you were like, okay, I'm actually like, you caught up, you're getting good at this, and like now you're getting to that next level where you're competing and start winning? Like how long did it take to get to that point?
It's a good question. I was getting beat up a lot at the club, but we were going to tournaments like once a month. So we were going to tournaments all over like Ontario. We go to like Niagara, we go like everywhere and just going to these like local events kind of once a month. And I had always I like came second a couple of times, third, but I'd never won like a tournament. And I remember I had a year until provincials came around, which was going to be in the summer. Because when I joined the club, it was January. So I basically had until August to prep for like the first ever like provincials, like my first
Holy
thing.
Shit, that's like no time.
Yeah, well, I remember. So when I got there, that first day when I was sitting in at the club, there was a team of athletes that were the same age as me, and they were getting ready for nationals, which were going to be in Winnipeg that year. And I remember I was thinking like, oh my God, like you're telling me, like I was almost starstruck by like these people I'd never met before. I'm like, wait, you're my age, and you guys are going to get on a plane and represent like Team Ontario at nationals, like in another. I was like blown away. I was like, I need to be there. So I was like, I obviously had missed that one. So there was one like the next January. So that was kind of like my first goal. Like, how can I, be at this nationals? And the only way to get there was to qualify through medaling at provincials. So that was kind of my goal. And I had lost every tournament up until one before. Like provincials was August. There was one last event in Niagara in July. That was the one that I won. It kind of flipped the switch. Like, okay, I can do this. Like I think, and I say this all the time, but there's a difference between thinking you can do something and knowing that you can. I had thought that I could up until that moment, but after I had won that one local tournament in Niagara, it kind of flipped the switch. Like, oh, I know I can win these things. And then a month later, I went to provincials. I won. A few months later, nationals in Vancouver, I won. And then from there, it just started off like a pretty nice chain of events of like really doing well at these like international competitions. I think like 3 months later, I was in Germany, Las Vegas. Like we were doing a lot of international stuff, and it was a slow build, but I got the hang of it pretty quickly.
So for you there now, you're winning these nationals, you're competing across the world. You're still around the age, 12, 13? Around that time?
So it was like grade 8, grade 9.
Okay.
That's a fast turnover.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
And then from there, like, what's the next step? You're sitting there, you're winning, You're obviously heavily invested into that. What's the next step for you from that?
I guess with a sport like Taekwondo, the goal is going to be Olympics, right? It's tough because it's not a sport. There's not a lot of upside like career-wise. It's not like NBA or NFL where like if you make it, you're good. You know, Taekwondo, like a lot of amateur sports, is like purely passion based. Like you're never going to make money out of it. You're never going to be famous out of it. It's just like to say you did, right? So, you know, my goal was always Olympics, you know, world championships. I wanted to be like ranked #1 in the world. I thought that was like a pretty cool goal to have. So everything you do is with that in mind. Like, okay, I need to compete. I get experience. I earn like ranking points the more that I go. And you just kind of like set those goals along the way. And, you know, again, like when you're starting off with international competitions, you really just, you'd like to win, but it's about getting experience and traveling and just understanding all the dynamics of like international fighting compared to just kind of local stuff. But then eventually I started to win like the international events and, you know, my ranking was getting better and better and, you know, it just kind of sets the stage to compete at bigger events and stuff like that. So, you know, my goal was always Olympics. And again, it's a passion sport because there's not a lot of kind of next steps after that.
Right.
That's your peak.
Yeah, really, like it pretty much is. Yeah, there's Olympics, there's world championships, but yeah, like most amateur sports, like there's nothing that you're like this is going to change my life forever. It's not like baseball. You know, you once you make it, you're good. Like it's not like that. Or even in the UFC now, we're like if you're an MMA, it's hard to get to the UFC, but if you make it, maybe not. If you make it, there's still kind of a next level. There's a lot of people that kind of make the UFC. They have 3 fights and they're out, but like there's a pathway to you being like perfectly successful, financially free, all that stuff. But like amateur sports just aren't like that, especially in Canada.
It's hard. It's hard. It's not an easy pathway, but I mean, I guess you could say like you could win like nationals or #1, you know, #1 in the world. And then maybe you start your own gym or you start training kids and you can kind of start like, you know, your own business in that sense. But I mean, for an athlete point of view, you kind of do peak out, right? And it's hard to really climb that mountain and be financially free, but if you do, I mean, that's pretty sick. You could basically say you could beat up anyone in the fucking world, and like you're financially free from it, right? It's pretty cool. Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know.
And that's the thing. I didn't want to open up a club because I hated teaching. I hated like teaching classes. I like being the athlete, but anytime I had to step in and teach like a kids class or whatever, like some of the high performance stuff I liked, but if it came to teaching like kids classes, it wasn't for me. So I knew that. Okay, like my pathway can't be like the traditional one of be an athlete, leverage that to open up a school. Like, wasn't for me.
So you just I guess you did. Was it like the new generation, or you just didn't enjoy like teaching kids?
I didn't mind like the competitive stuff, but I don't know, it kind of felt like babysitting. Like it's tough. Like
yeah, they're not that serious.
I find like anytime you're working with kids, which is funny because like I have youth clients that I actually really like working with. But it's different, I guess, in the way that I do it. But like with kids, either you're passionate about it or you're not. Like a teacher, you know what I mean? Like if you're a school teacher, like you're just built different. Like you're passionate about like teaching kids. But if you're not going to be a great teacher, right? So it's the same thing with like being a swimming coach or a martial arts instructor. Like either you enjoy working with kids or you don't. And it just wasn't something that I enjoyed, especially being at such a high level. It was hard for me to come down and teach like super basic things when I'm looking at it from like a different lens all the time.
It's a good point, though. I agree. Like, you know, I coach volleyball as well. I don't think I'd be able to coach like the youngest ones, like teaching them the fundamentals and stuff like that. Because you're right, it is a jump down from like the high level that you play or you compete in to go all the way back down is like, I don't know, it's a different love. I see what you're saying because I picked up these boys, like started coaching them. They were 15U, so I mean, they had already had all the like, you know, basic stuff, and then you bring them to that next level, right? And now they're playing at a high level at university ball and college ball. Like that's where my career was. But that lower than that, I agree. I don't think I'd be able to do that.
It's tough. You just have to be like built for it and like passionate about it. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah. So then where did you like? So after that, then you obviously peaked in your Taekwondo, right? Like where did you? Like, how did you mind lock come into play? And like, you were like, yeah, let's do this, right? You didn't want to open up a gym, but how did you think like, let me do something else in this sort of industry?
It's funny, and it's not going to sound believable, but I almost always wanted to do something like this, which is weird because it's not a traditional pathway. Like actually the first thing I ever wanted to be was an astronaut. Like when I was like 5 years old and you asked me like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go into space. And then one day my parents were like, listen, like number one, most astronauts don't even go into space. And number two, like you have to be really good at science. And like, I didn't like science. So I'm like, wait, I need to be great at science. And out of all like the astronauts, like a fraction of them even go into, I'm like, no, there's no way. So that kind of like burst my bubble of being an astronaut. And then again, like funny enough, I kind of just, this was it. Like if you, in my 8th grade yearbook where it says, what do you want to be in 20 years? It says sports psychologist.
Really?
Yeah. In 8th grade, I just knew, I'm like, I like sports. I like mindset. Like I just like the way that people think and behavior. I'm like, maybe I could piece it together. I mean, I had no idea like how it would work out or what it even looked like, but I just knew I wanted to stay in the sports industry. And I was passionate about like the mental side, which is weird at that age, but I just liked it.
Were you like that guy in the friend group that like someone always called and they were like, you know, like kind of trauma dumping on you and like you were helping them through shit, or was that was nothing to do with it?
Kind of, like it depends. I think like I would give good answers to questions, but it's tough. Like you know, if you were gonna ask my best friends and my teammates, like when I was training, like I was such an asshole to everybody, and not even in a bad way, but I think you have to have a level of like selfishness and ego to be like, especially a fighter. So I definitely leaned into that, but I think I had a pretty good balance where like I could have a good conversation with someone about, you know, the things that they were going through too. So I kind of had that balance of like, I'd push the people around me, but also support them equally. But yeah, it's not even so, I can't even say that like, oh yeah, I was always the guy that people came to. Like that'd be a pretty easy transition, but it wasn't even that. I think like, if I really had to think hard about it, like my dad was in advertising growing up, like he worked at an ad agency. So sometimes I would ask him questions like about advertising, like, oh, like why do they, I was curious, like when a car brand comes out with a new car, like why do they name it a certain name, right? Like they come out with a new car. I'm like, what's the demographic? Like I was really thinking about that when I was like 9 years old, like, oh, the name of the car is to trigger like a certain person to buy it. So if it's like a more masculine, like pickup truck type of thing, they'll name it something like a Raptor. And right, like I was thinking like, oh wow, like there's so much psychology to everything. Like the moment I figured out like what psychology was and behavior, I'm like, this is cool. And I also knew that I loved sports. And I mean, I was watching UFC and stuff since I was like 9-10 years old. So I'd always loved fighting. I'm like, those two things could probably come together. I had no idea how it was going to look, but I went from astronaut to sports psychologist and never looked back.
So when did you do the whole pivot thing? Like, is this, because we know you were the captain of the Taekwondo for Canada. And I'm assuming you did that first. Yep. And then after that, first of all, how did you get that gig? First off, like that's a big gig, right? You're representing Canada. You're the captain of the Taekwondo for Team I had to get that gig?
I had to fight for it. Like I had to go to a competition. It was a nationals and just a simple fight off. Like whoever wins nationals makes the national team. And then I was just selected to be captain of the national team because I'd been on the national team before. I'd had a lot of international success. Mm-hmm. So I guess just through that experience, like I had to earn my way into the national team. And then I was selected as the captain for it just from the head coach at the time who was running the show to just be like the captain. So it's not really, it's kind of just like their choice or what they decide. But yeah.
Usually when someone says they're a national champion, they have to win nationals to say that.
I get that. But obviously there's
just clarify. I thought maybe you were confused. Like, how are you national champion?
I just signed up.
Like,
I just signed up for it.
No, but my question was more like, I'm assuming there's a shit ton of competition with that. And you're the captain of the Canadian Taekwondo team. And then you pivot into Mindlock, right? Yeah. So was Mindlock always, but was sports psychology was obviously always the idea around that time? Because obviously you thought about this when you were super young. When did you kind of go full throttle with this? When was that huge, like, you know what, fuck it, I got to turn this into a business?
Yeah. I would say, so I stopped competing at the end of 2017 and I kind of sat there and I'm like, I was at school in university for psych at the time also. And I'd had this idea and I had some free time. It had been like only a couple months, honestly. Like by the time I had launched Mindlock was like February of 2018, and I stopped competing in like November of 2017. So really only a few months. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, man, like, let me just make a website. Like, let me go on Wix and just like, I'm like, I was just like feeling creative. I was like in my living room. I'm like, let me just make a website. I'm like, one day I'm going to like do this. So I might as well, like, even if I just make a website for the sake of it, and like 10 years from now, I'm like, let me just make a website. And then I start making this website. I'm like, this looks pretty good. So then in this website, I keep referencing this like phantom program, mental training program. It didn't exist, but I'm like, this looks good too. And then I had this moment. I'm like, why? Like, what am I waiting for? Like, why not just start? Like, there's a lot of things I don't know, but there's also a lot of things that I do, especially by the end of my career. Back to your kind of question before, like people were kind of starting to come to me and ask me more specific questions around it. And I really enjoyed that part too. So I'm like, let me just see, like, worst case, who am I to judge if I'm ready or not? Like, the way I saw it was like, it's going to happen one way or another. Instead of me being the deciding factor, like, I'll kind of quote unquote, like, I'll let the market decide if this is a good fit. Like, I'll just go out there and either people like it or they don't. People register or they don't. People who register continue or they drop out. And that's how I know that, that's it. So for me, that's kind of where I learned, like, let me just start. And I think that's been a good philosophy for me too. Like, moving forward with everything in my life is like, instead of overthinking it, I'm like, let me just do it. And one of two things will happen. It'll crash and burn. And then at least I know, like, that's a moment to pause and reflect and kind of think about how I want to go about it, or it'll work. And it would have been stupid for me to hesitate and second guess myself.
What's up, guys? Quick intermission here. If you're enjoying this week's episode of the podcast, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and rate us.
And leave a fucking review too. All right, let's get back to it.
Okay, Dylan, so we have to ask you the name MindLog. Where did that stem from, and where did you get the name?
Did you fucking do it already? Hurry up, go do it.
It's a good question. I think there were a couple things going on at the time. I was like really big into watching NBA. This was like right before the Raptors playoff run, because this was like 2018. But I found like the announcers were always using the term like locked in. Like, anytime someone was like really in the zone and focused, they were always using the term locked in. And that really resonated with me I just liked the term. So there was always something in the back of my mind. And when I was thinking about different names, I'm like, what could it be? Like Mind Game. Well, actually at first it wasn't MindLock. I called it like Dylan Nadler or something, because I thought like, I'll put my name on. And then it was just a bad name. I had to like rebrand later on. Like, this sucks. Like, this just sounds bad.
What was it? Dylan Nadler what? We want another name.
It was Dylan S. Nadler. So here's the thing. I read somewhere that like when people publish things, like if you add in like a middle initial, you sound smarter. I'm like, oh, let me go, because my middle name's Sam. So I'm like, Dylan S. Nadler, sports psychology, which I end up getting in trouble with because I can't say sports psychology because it's a protected term, right? I'm not a psychologist. I'm a mental performance coach. So I got in trouble for the name. Well, this is before I got in trouble for the name, but the whole name sucked. Dylan S. Nadler. I was like, this sucks.
You didn't have ChatGPT back then.
Didn't have ChatGPT at all. And I'm like, I got to be creative. And I'm also like, this isn't very scalable. Like, I was also watching a lot of Shark Tank, and on Shark Tank, they always talk about scaling something. And I'm like, well, this isn't scalable, because if it's with me, like, what happens if I want to do something else, or not do something else, but like spend my time, whatever. Like, it starts and ends with me, or maybe I, have a team and I retire. Like, how can this live on? So I'm like, I have to come up with like a brand. Like, when you're driving by a building and you see a, headline somewhere, like, what's going to make you think like, oh, that's cool. Especially because the space of like mental performance, it wasn't a cool thing, right? It was still very like therapy feel.
I feel like that was so untouched at the time. Yeah. I feel like it still is, to be honest.
Still is, but even more back in 2018, it was like totally under the radar. So I'm like, it needs to sound cool. So I'm like, mind game, mind what? I'm like, yeah, but I don't want it to sound like too playful. So like, what about mind lock? I'm like, because you're locked in. And the way I saw it, and I still see it, is that when you think about underperformance, right? Kind of something I touched on at the beginning. Underperformance is when you're prepared, but you kind of lose track of it. The closer that you get to the performance, you get nervous, you get anxious, you're losing it. So what I saw, a lot of people ask me like, oh, mind lock, it's like you're unlocking your mind. I'm like, I actually see it the other way. You're locking it in. Like, you take all the work that you've done, all the prep that you've done, and you're almost surrounding it with this like chamber, this like force field. You're protecting all the work that you've done. So when I think of mind locking, kind of where I came up with the name, it wasn't about unlocking anything. It was about like locking it in. Like, take the work that you've done and lock that in, So you take that to the competition and you do the job you're supposed to do. Whereas a lot of people who underperform, they lose track of that and they're not able to do the things that they want to do. They're losing. It's like, no, we need to lock that in and kind of with everything else kind of mix in. I'm like, yeah, this is the name. I did a quick Google. Does this exist? No, perfect.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
That was fucking like, that was well said.
Thanks, man.
I'm surprised it wasn't taken. Because that's like a really cool, short, simple.
Nowadays, people would probably try to search that up and they're like, yeah, it's taken. Yeah, it's taken.
We have to
But
think,
then,
again,
like,
at the time, and this is a generalization because it's not maybe 100% accurate, but it's not a brand, right? Like, it's not like a Nike or an Under Armour or a Harvey's. Like, it was a, anything mental training related is very like psychologist, psychiatry. It's, it's a person's name and their practice, right? So, that's the thing that you'll find is like a lot of like people in that industry, like they just owned a practice and it was named after them or it was named like something similar, right? So that was also kind of a big part of my motivation, especially starting so young. Because when I started it, I was 19, right? So I'm like, I didn't know anything about the industry, which was good because it gave me this kind of like blissful ignorance where I just didn't know what to do, what not to do, what other people were doing. I just kind of did what I thought made sense. I'm like, why don't we make this a brand? Let's make it cool. Like that was also my vision was like, why can't mental training be something that people are excited to do and they're proud of, right? Like when you crush a workout, you'll put up a selfie and you're proud of it because it shows the hard work that you've done. How come when people go to therapy, it's like hush hush. It's like no one talks about it. They sneak out. It's not something that's cool. I'm like, well, that sucks. Like no wonder people aren't doing it if there's the stigma around it. Why can't we make mental training like exciting and popular and cool the same way that other parts of training are? So that was kind of part of my methodology also. It's like if we create a nice brand around it, I can be the face. I'm younger, like I'm former athlete. Like let's do this the right way and break the stigma around mental health.
I think that's huge, man. You know what? I will say, and this is non-biased, like, I had met you through, my team coming to you and you giving them the mental performance coaching that you did. And there was a different bond between like me and the boys and you and the boys. And yeah, my buddy and I teach them volleyball, but they looked at you in a completely different way. And it was like they looked up to you and respected everything that came out of your mouth. And they were proud that like they had that. They were like flexing it. Like they're reposting everything on their story. They loved when we said like we had like, team film with Mind Lock and stuff like that. Like they loved it. And, it's such a big thing nowadays. Like you said, like people are just almost not like ashamed or like hush hush about like therapy and stuff like that. But it's a real thing. And self-talk in sports is huge. And anybody who's watching this, and you've played sports, at any point in a game, a practice, your career, at anything, you've had negative thoughts. And they hold you back from performing at 100%. And it's just a fact. There's nothing that you can say to convince me that you're mentally tough, that nothing bothers you. The crowd doesn't bother you. You miss a shot, it doesn't bother you. You mess something up, it doesn't bother you. It does. Whether you tell yourself it doesn't or it does. And to have someone like you like represent the boys I coach was so awesome because they were actually proud to talk about some things that, Rez and I couldn't get out of them. Do you know what I mean? Like we never saw that side of them. You brought out a different side of them and we were like, holy shit, like I didn't even know that side of them. I didn't even know that they were thinking that before a game. I wish I could have helped or understood what they were feeling, right? Because it's such a hidden thing. And you're right. I don't think it should be. And it should be something that, you flex. Like, I had a fucking workout with Mind Lock. Like I was talking to Dylan, I did this and I played lights out.
Yeah.
And it was because of that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. No, that means a lot. I think like, there's also a difference when someone comes in and like that's their only role, right? Like again, as a coach, as a skills coach, you're totally capable of like motivating the group and encouraging them, right? It's not to say that normal coaches don't have the capacity to help a little bit, but it's also like it's too much at once from the same person, I think, right? Like when you're, being coached on your technique and then they're also trying to tell you to stay motivated and believe in yourself. It's like, okay, yeah. It's like, when your parent tells you something versus another adult, but they say the same thing, but you listen to them instead. Sometimes you just need a different voice. You need someone you can kind of resonate with. And I think like that's the benefit of starting it kind of as young as I did too. It's like people can look at me and associate with me. They don't look at me as someone that's like way on the outskirts of the sport, right? And that's the other problem, kind of going back to the whole like, Maple Leafs thing, or all these kind of big organizations that have their sports psychologists on the roster, is like, what does the average sports psychologist look like and sound like, and what's their experience? They're, again, it's a generalization, but they're probably more academic than they are sport experience, right? They've probably spent more time in a classroom than they have on the ice or in the ring, which isn't a bad thing, but it's hard to resonate with that. They're probably much older, right? And again, hard to resonate with that. So when you sit down, I mean, if I was 18 and I'm sitting down with this like 62-year-old psychologist and he's trying to ask me about like, what do you mean you cut weight? Isn't that unhealthy? I'm like, right away, I think when you sit down and talk to someone, whether this is in sport or just like you meet someone new, like probably within the first half of a sentence, you're like, oh, this person gets me or they don't, or we're similar or we're not. Right away, you meet someone, you're like, oh, this is kind of like my people, or you're not, right? So, for me, I'm really appreciative of like all the elements that I have going on where I can, talk to athletes, whether you're a, 36-year-old UFC fighter or you're a 10-year-old hockey player. Like I can kind of meet you where you're at and you're going to feel comfortable and you don't have to worry about like, oh, this is going to feel like school. Oh, this is going to feel like a chore. Like it shouldn't. If we're doing it the right way, it should be fun. You should be learning a lot from it, but the more you're enjoying it, the better you're going to do. It by no means should it ever feel like too schooly.
Yeah. And how do you adapt from like sport to sport? Because obviously you did Taekwondo growing up and like that was kind of like your thing. And like fighting, obviously you could probably connect to quote unquote the most. But I mean, I saw it firsthand that you connected in the sport of volleyball, which you've never really played other than probably like elementary school and stuff like that. But how were you able to like just switch sports and just be like, I know what you're talking about?
It's a good question. I guess everyone has like their own thing that they're just like weirdly good at. And for me, like that's one of those things. You can put me in a situation and like I'll just get it. Like it could be a sport. It could be like watching people like act in a movie. I'm like, oh, I get it. Like I can kind of put myself in those shoes and understand, kind of how you're feeling and kind of use that to figure out what the next steps are. So it's tougher, like especially when I was getting started, like I like to keep it to just combat sport. So it was MMA, it was Taekwondo, it was jiu-jitsu, it was a lot of combat. And then, the more I started to branch out, I'm like, okay, the principles are very similar. The only thing that changes are the details. Now, that's my responsibility to learn those details. So again, the same thing that made me a good athlete, I think makes me good in this space is like, I'll do my studying, like I'll figure things out. So, even though I had no experience with volleyball before working with your guys, it's like, but that doesn't have to stop me from learning about it. Like, why can't I take 3 hours over the weekend and just watch a bunch of volleyball film and just like, watch interviews of people that have like, it's not that hard. You just have to do the work, right?
Yeah.
But if you come in and you're like, oh, I don't really need to know the specifics, the moment you bring up a specific term in volleyball and I'm like, hey, what's that mean? You lose the room, right? That's like the moment you're like, hey, let's talk about, getting an ace on the serve. Like, oh, what's that? Everyone's like, oh, this guy, right? You don't need to be an expert. That's kind of the way I approach this. I don't need to be an expert in every sport of every client that I have, but like, I need to have a fundamental understanding. And once I have a fundamental understanding of the details of the sport, I can apply the principles that I know, which are, like you said, things like self-talk, things like goal setting, things like being able to, flip a negative to a positive, things like resilience. Those are things that we can apply to different athletes, different industries, even sport and non-sport. The details are where you get them, and a little bit of studying goes a long way.
Yeah, you even came out to a couple practices and tryouts, I even remember, and you were just giving us a second point. I remember at tryouts, a second point of view of like the mental side of maybe what that kid was feeling and what he was going through, because being at tryouts is a nerve-wracking thing. You're not going to get the top performance from kids at tryouts, and we felt like we were lacking that, and like to have you there was just like, that kid's skills there, but like something's off, and you'd be like, but he's just straight up nervous. You can see, I saw he messed up before, and it's like, he's kind of trying to bounce back right now, but he's thrown off. And it's like, to understand that side, it changed our team completely, right? It gave us a whole new like point of view of like, it's not just skill. It's like, can they perform? Like how they handle pressure. It's like a crazy thing. Like even for you, dude, like think about like going up on stage and like doing the bodybuilding that you do. Like you have what, 30 seconds up there?
Yeah.
So you train years, you put your body through hell and like you work your ass off and it comes down to 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, there's different aspects of it. There's like a 30-second individual, and then you do where you're up with the group.
My point is the ratio is insane.
Yeah.
The amount of time you put into your performance is just like, so it's like if you had a guy like Dylan that was able to like, hey, like, you know, you put in all this work, trust what you're doing, all this stuff, all the good things that he said. I'm quoting him because I've heard him do it before, but like that helps you.
Yeah, I could have needed you that day, man. That was nervous.
There
That
you
was
go.
nerve-wracking, man. It was, just like, you know, never even done anything like it. Just you go on stage, there's like 150 people, which is not a lot of people, but it's just like lights in your face and it's just music hits and it's just like, whoa, you know, but you go over your routine a lot and it's just like, you never actually go through the mental side of it, right? Which is something that I would have, at the time, I would have loved to had some insight on that for sure.
I think that's a key point that applies not just to the stuff that you were doing, but to all athletes everywhere. Like how many times you see online people talk about like the lights were too bright, the lights were bright. You know that meme, like the lights were brighter than I expected. But it's true. Like you have to understand when you train, you're spending hours and hours and hours training. But where are you? Right? You're training at your gym, with your teammates, with your coaches, on the mats that you know. The smell is familiar. The locker room is comfortable. So you might have done 1,000 hours of prep, but in the space that you're most comfortable with, right? The moment you step into an unfamiliar space and now the floor feels a little different, the sound echoes differently, the lights are in your face, there's people staring at you, which you're not used to. That's like the perfect recipe for underperformance. And what's a good example is Contender Series, right? When people fight in Contender Series and you hear them afterwards, people that have lost or people that have underperformed, very rarely do they say like, oh, that the other guy was just better than me. Like that was a tough matchup for me. What they usually say, man, like the lights were brighter than I expected. It was weird to walk out with no walkout music. I always walk out to a song, but on Contender Series, they don't walk out to walkout music. There's no crowd other than a few people. Oh, Dana's sitting right there. So it has nothing to do with their skill and their game plan. Their coaches have spent all this time on the game plan, watching film from the opponent, but that's not what gets them for the most part. It's the lights, the cameras, the lead up, the interview process before, the stuff that you don't train for, right? So that's kind of back to what you were saying, which is that like, you know, underperformance or nervousness or when, you know, people kind of fall into that habit, it's not always because they just couldn't deliver. There was something distracting them. And usually, you know, environmental factors play like a huge role in that, right? If you guys recorded 100 podcasts in this room and you're like, oh, we've got this, right? And then someone invited you, you know, the Nelk guys were like, oh, we're going to bring you to our studio. I guarantee you're going to feel super nervous and you're going to be stuttering and hesitant because the lights are different. The room is different. The paint on the wall is different. Even though you guys have, you know, at that point would have done hundreds and hundreds of hours of podcasts, it's in this room, in this couch, you know, it's familiar. It's the lack of familiarity that can screw people up. And it's a thing that people don't practice enough, but that's kind of a mental tool is how can you kind of prepare for the unexpected in that sense.
Have you ever coached a podcaster before? Or?
Day one, let's do it. This is the whole, you guys wrote me into this. This isn't even being published. This is just going to be a session. A private session.
So you can pose it. No, we're joking. No, this shit's actually so raw and like, honestly, like for anyone listening, like I know like I'm preaching Dylan so much, but it's because I feel so strongly about it. It's not because I like Dylan.
You've worked with him too.
Yeah, I've worked with him, but it's not because I like Dylan and I like what he does. Like obviously I like what he does, but it's not because it's like a personal thing. It's generally because I went through this as an athlete and I'm almost mad that I didn't have that outlet and that person that would understand me on that, like that level of performing. Mm-hmm. Like even in practice, like sometimes I just never had that fight in me. Like I never like showed up to like 100% of the time I wasn't like there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
mentally.
But game time, you know, I'd show up and I had butterflies in my stomach and I was ready, but like practice, I'd show up and I'd like, sometimes I just fuck around and I wouldn't take it seriously. And I wish I did. I just couldn't find that reason or whatever it was to lock in. Like, funny enough, like it's not a paid advertisement. I know I keep saying it, but it's true. And that's why I feel so strongly about it, man. And seeing it firsthand with like the boys, like it was like, and if anyone, like even you, I'm sure you would have fucking wished you knew someone like that when you went up on stage, man. Sure. Like who knows what that would have changed.
Yeah. Would have not been last, maybe second last.
Improvements.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. I got
Yeah.
a question about, because you started off, you're working individually with fighters,
Yeah.
right? And then now you were saying you were working with like sports teams with, multiple people. How do you go from like individual people to like a group setting? Do you do where it's like, do you grab these athletes individually and talk to them, or are you talking to a team?
It depends. Like I'd still say the majority of what I do is one-on-one, but sometimes I'll get brought in, and again, it'll be a volleyball team or a hockey team or whatever. And it's like there's different ways to approach it. It's kind of half seminar, half Q&A. Like you kind of, I like to introduce different topics, work through kind of like the exercise that I think that is important, that kind of develops that skill, and then leave room for discussion, right? So if we're talking about goal setting, that's something that you can do one-on-one, or you can present it to the group. Okay, everybody take 2 minutes and just kind of write down these things together. Maybe, we feel comfortable to share. Maybe someone has a question that helps somebody else. And then there's some sort of application like, okay, now that we've done this, what's kind of the next step? So it's not too tough to go from like a one-on-one to a one-to-many in a group situation. You just have to have better kind of control over like the group dynamics. You have to win them over a lot better, because especially with like, the younger ones, like if one person gets distracted, it's easy for everybody to kind of lose their focus. But you just have to be a little bit more disciplined about it. But the concepts are still the same. The delivery is different. It's the same thing with what I was saying before, like a 29-year-old Olympian compared to a 12-year-old soccer player. The concepts are actually the same. The delivery is the variable, right? So that's kind of one thing I guess that I'm pretty good at, is being able to deliver the content to different types of people and still get the same result.
Interesting. Now, you do with the Mind Lock, right? You've worked with kids, you've worked with athletes, you've worked with older people. You've also actually worked with a lot of known fighters as well, right? I actually just watched a clip of you recently before we got you on the pod. You were just talking with GSP about different clips or different kicks. Sorry. How did you get to that point? Like, who did you work with to get you to that point?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to you guys for getting GSP. I saw you just signed him as a partner to the Skills Trade College, which is awesome. I think, like, first of all, that's such a cool collaboration. Like, when you think about athletes and trades, like working with your hands, hard workers, like that's such a mesh. And like the athletes that I've worked with, a lot of the especially older athletes, not even just adult, work is always one of the main constraints, right? It's how do you balance a job with training full time, and not even just a job, not even just the hours, but like something you're passionate about. So I think something like the trades is so cool because it gives like athletes a place where it's very transferable skills. Like the things that can make you a great athlete are the things that make you great in the trade. So it's such a perfect collab. So I just want to say congrats to you guys on signing.
Yeah, that was sick. That was sick. Yeah, thanks. So
yeah. Anyway, the GSP store. So what's the question about?
So
GSP?
like, how did you even get to the moment? Because like I'm watching the clip and like GSP's asking you about how to throw I believe it's a roundhouse kick,
back kick,
a back kick, right? How did that even how did you get the chance to meet him? Where were you guys?
That was crazy. Like I've only had a couple like starstruck moments in my life, and that was definitely the biggest one. This was in Las Vegas at a karate combat event. So karate combat, it's another kind of sport organization. They fight in a pit. It's pretty cool. And my client, Ross Levine, he was the defending champ. He was actually going for like a champ, like double champ status. He was fighting up a weight class. So he's one of the guys I'll go out there for, and we'll spend like all week together and just kind of prep. Like he's really good. He brings me in as part of his team. It's like me as head coach, nutritionist. Like we're just there for him like all week as part of his camp. I get to be in the corner. So GSP was one of the like the ambassadors for karate combat. Like he was doing commentary. So it was him. Wonder Boy Thompson was there, which is cool. I got to meet him. Sick. He's like so nice, like exactly what you think he'll be like, Wonder Boy. Like he totally is. So Wonder Boy was there, and GSP walks in, and it was crazy because it wasn't like a fan like meet and greet. Like we were just there for the weigh-in. The only people in this room were like the athletes and the coaches. So he comes up there, and I'm like, man, I got to find a way to like say what's up to this guy and meet him. So I kind of snuck around, and I had this picture on my phone because I had a feeling like I saw they announced that GSP was going to be there ahead of time because they cycle through. Sometimes Lyoto Machida's there. Like they have a few high level guys that commentate. So I had this picture on my phone of a hand wrap that he had sent me, a signed one back in the day, because I think, and I don't know 100% how it works. Maybe you guys can ask him if you see him. He used to do at the end of his camps for his fights, he would sign his hand wraps and send them to people. And I don't know how my name got thrown in the mix. I think my mom maybe knew someone that was like his coach or something, but I had just won the US Open Taekwondo tournament like that same year, which was like a really big, out of all the international open class tournaments, like the US Open is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And I had won it. And I think it was the year I'd won it back to back. I'd won it twice in a row, which was like pretty cool at the time. And I guess he caught wind of it. And I was one of the people that he sent a signed like hand wrap to. So I was like,
That's sick.
13. Like I still have it in my office. And so I showed him a picture. I said what's up to him. I showed him this picture of the hand wrap. He had no idea. He did not remember at all. He was like, trying to, when someone's like trying to play it off, like, cool. Yeah. I'm like, he doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I was like, I used to Taekwondo. I showed him the thing, and I got a picture with him, and I was expecting just to like, I was like, if that's where it ended, I was like, my life is complete. I got my picture with GSP, like. That's it. I could die now. Like I'm good. I'm good. And as I'm leaving, like he's standing there, Bassrudin's standing there, and he stops me. And he goes, "You did Taekwondo. Like, help me figure out this back kick thing. Help. Did you say help to me?" He's like, yeah. He's like, when you throw your back kick, how do you throw it? Like, do you turn? Because he's saying, Joe Rogan has a really strong back kick, but he opens his hips. That was the question. It's hard to see because I have a video on my page. It's hard to hear it, but that's his question: is when you throw a back kick, do you open your hips up or do you keep them closed? And kind of my whole thing to him was like, when you open your hips up, which is the way that Joe Rogan does it, it kind of looks like a side kick at the end. But the problem is you leave yourself too open if you miss. So if you open yourself up too much and you miss, your body's all over the place. You have no balance and you're kind of in a really vulnerable spot. If you keep it a little bit tight, you keep your knees closer together and you throw it almost like a horse kick, like behind you, and you just kind of look over your shoulder, you can hit it stronger. You're hitting with your heel and you can exit like right away. So that's what we were talking about, the difference between like a Taekwondo style back kick versus other ones. And Joe Rogan, I was just like, man, this is cool. And then someone was there and they were recording the whole thing. I'm like, yep. This is perfect. I was like the most annoying I'd ever been because one of the guys that was recording it was my client, Ross Levine, like his video guy. And he had caught it, like the video, and he was so busy editing because he was only there to edit like this vlog that we were recording all week for Ross's fight camp. So he's busy like all night. He's editing stuff because we were trying to post an episode a day, which is tough to do. And I was there and I was like, man, like you've got that video, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, could I get it? Like, could you airdrop it to me? He's like, yeah. Okay. So I was like the most annoying I'd ever been. I was like in my background, I'm like, what if he loses it? I needed the video. But yeah, that was the story of not just meeting him, but having like a full conversation. And I can confidently say that I've helped GSP with his back kick, which is nuts.
That's crazy to think about.
That's surreal. Like that's a surreal moment. Is there any other athletes you met along the way? Like not obviously maybe not the GSP level, but like surreal moments where you're like, holy fuck, like, this might actually be panning out to my, my dreams of when I was a kid. Like this is actually coming full circle.
Yeah. So there were two moments. Like I said, the GSP was the second moment, but the first time I was ever starstruck was I had a phone call with Forrest Griffin, which was insane because when I first started watching UFC and like
100% you don't know who that is.
No, I actually don't.
You don't know Forrest Griffin?
No, I don't.
You're a fake fan. You're a bandwagon UFC. Yeah. I bet you started watching the McGregor 2016.
Yeah.
There's like a BC before Christ after. It's like before McGregor,
That's me.
after McGregor. Yeah. He's like he was the first winner of Ultimate Fighter, the show.
Like that I didn't know.
The show I know about. I didn't know he was the winner. I know
he's the reason why the Ultimate Fighter blew up the way he got. You should. Okay, if you've never watched that fight,
oh yeah, Mr. Fucking Chiefs.
Well, I mean, he's like an O.
Shut up.
When this is done, go home, type in Ultimate Fighter Season 1, like final fight, and it's Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonnar, which is a name you definitely don't know.
I don't know him.
And they just went to. It was like the first like war.
It's probably a bloodbath.
Crazy. It was the first ever ending of the Ultimate, and that's what it was so good that it's like what got them like all UFC the deals 1? And all the eye. It wasn't UFC. It was the first Ultimate Fighter. So
it wasn't even.
It's what made them like mainstream for the first time because they were on like Spike TV and like it was the first ever season. Like you'll be surprised how many OGs were on that season of Ultimate Fighter. But Forrest Griffin was like the guy. So when I started watching UFC in like 2009 or 10 or whatever it was, like. He was my first, before GSP, he was my first favorite fighter because I had seen like, it was when John Jones was on the come up. Like, I think it was the first fight I ever watched was like a Forrest Griffin. I'm like, oh, that guy's cool. Like, I just chose him as my favorite because he was like the guy. And anyway, long story short, I was working with a fighter, Cody Stamen, in the UFC, like really, really good guy, high level, top 10 at one point. And he had reshared something that I was doing, or a post that I had made. And I'd seen that Forrest Griffin like followed me out of it. I'm like, I thought it was a fake account. I'm like, there's no way Forrest Griffin like followed me. So I checked, and it's a real account, and I messaged him like, hey man, like, super, what an honor, like, because I saw he was like maybe coaching or whatever. I'm like, if you have any, like, this is what I do. Like, if you have any athletes or whatever, I'd love to just kind of like talk about it. And he's like, well, he's like, yeah, he's like, I run the PI. So he, the Performance Institute.
Yeah.
So he runs it. So that's how you might.
Holy
That's,
shit.
I guess, how he's more relevant to you now. So he runs like the UFC Performance Institute. He's like the
That's
head of
crazy.
everything. So yeah, I run the PI. Like, we're looking for like maybe some people to come in and help and work with the fighters. They're like, yeah, let's get on the call. So I remember like, and we had a few calls, but that first time I walked outside, and like I actually took a screenshot, like as he had called me and his name showed up, like I had to take a screenshot on my phone of like Forrest Griffin calling me. I'm like, this is nuts. So that was like the first moment where I was like really starstruck. I'm like, I'm talking to this guy. Like, he's the reason why I started watching UFC, and now he's calling me about like potentially working at the PI and like with these fighters. And like, anyway, that's how I've been to the PI now a couple times. Like when I go to Vegas, and like he'll take me in, he'll give me a tour. Like even last time I came with like my dad and my brother, he took us around. He's the nicest guy, meet some fighters that are there, but like he's a good dude. But that was like the first starstruck moment that I had. And then getting to meet him in person last year at the Performance Institute was like just nuts.
That's sick to hear. He's like, that's not the only one. Like, obviously him and GSP just so humble, and like you were telling the story earlier about, like GSP asking about the kick, and it's like GSP doesn't need to like go out of his way and learn something like that. Like, and this is no shame to you, but like, who the fuck are you to him, right? Just some random person. But it just goes to show you, like, he looks at everyone as a human being. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, nothing. Like, it's just like, you're experiencing this maybe a little bit more than I am, which is crazy to think about, because you're like, GSP just asked me how to do this kick, and it's like, it's crazy to see. And then like the example you were just showing me now, where it's just like, he's running the Performance Institute, and it's almost like giving back to the way I see it, at least, is like giving back to the athletes and developing this whole thing that they have access to, that he probably had nothing, nowhere near to when he was back fighting, right? Like we talked to Cody Kovanchek about it, and he was like the meal prep and the doctors and the training and all the facility.
It's like Disney World.
Yeah, dude.
Crazy,
like, it's
man.
like, that definitely was not available back then for him. And like, for him to be a part of that, it's sick. Like, these guys go out of their way, and they're like doing all this. It's like, they're giving back, but not just giving back, like showing like, real human.
It goes
like,
to show you how much they love the company too. Like, besides fighting.
Yeah, but it's not even just a company. It's more just like, they're just good fucking people.
Yeah.
Like,
I wouldn't even go as far as to say giving back. I think, so we in martial arts, we call it like a white belt mentality, which is like always learning, always open. So it's not even about charity. It's not like, oh, you know what? Like, I see this kid on the come up, I want to do something nice for him. It's not even about that. It's not even charity. It's about this white belt mentality of, there's always something to learn. Even someone that has a fraction of the experience that I have, maybe they learned one thing along the way that I didn't, and I can learn from that. And that's the one thing that I've noticed with very successful people, whether it's the athletes that I work with or the companies and the CEOs, because I do some of that stuff too, is it's like, there's people at a certain level where they've reached a point and they're like, okay, I know it now. Like, whatever, you could talk your thing, but like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't need to listen to you. And then you get to another level above it, which is like, again, like these examples of like, I can learn from anybody at any time. I don't care whether you're at the top, at the bottom, in between, like, I can learn something from you. And it's, again, in martial arts, we call it that white belt mentality, always open, always learning. There's always something I can get. I think that's why they reach that level, because they never close themselves off, right? As long as you're always open to feedback, there's a difference between taking feedback and taking something personally. It doesn't mean that, the haters online are going to get to them because they're not taking it personally, but I'm open to feedback. I'll meet someone. If you're a specialist in something that I'm not a specialist in, I'll take advice for it, right? Maybe I've never missed weight as a fighter, but if you're a nutritionist, I'll ask you a question about carb loading, about, water, whatever, like I can learn, even if it's a little bit of it, you kind of like take what you want, leave the rest. Like that's one thing I've noticed with like very high performers, and the thing that they have that others don't is staying open, always willing to learn. And I think that's what kind of gets them from where they started to where they eventually become, and anything past that.
I think that was the key thing, is just always willing to learn, right? And that's a huge key to success, man. You walk around thinking you know everything, man. Like, nobody wants to be around you, man. Nobody wants to be around that know-it-all. We actually, on the last episode, we were actually talking about like that know-it-all that walks into the job site, and it's just like, dude, fuck off. Like, you don't know it all. Like, just be ready to come to work, be willing to learn every single day, and work your ass off, and everything will pay off, right? And once you become a foreman and a boss and X, Y, and Z, like, you still fucking learn every single day of your life. You just learn from mistakes or from people and stuff. Like, as soon as you shut that stuff out, you peak as a person. You're just like, yeah, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm on top of the world. It's like, okay, be on your own top of the world. Like, you're on your own level, man. Like,
Yeah, the world will move on without you at that point.
Exactly. Like, who the fuck are you to do that?
Bro, you were saying about the when Forrest Griffin called you, like, bro, when we had like, so GSP followed like the break talk, and like he gave me a call. I was at work. He's like, bro, like check the Instagram. Fucking, I think I clicked his account like 10 times.
Yep.
He didn't even believe me.
I did not.
He was on the phone
him,
and he was just like, bro, no. And then like,
There's like a
I'm
million
like, no,
fake
he
accounts,
followed
right?
us. He followed us. And he's silent. And when you hear someone like tapping their screen, he's like tapping it. He's just like tapping it.
Yeah.
He goes, bro, there's no fucking way. He goes, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, and I was calling, he didn't answer me. I think I called you like 2-3 times because he didn't answer me or whatever. I'm like, you gotta check your fucking phone.
Yeah.
It was so surreal.
Dude, it's crazy because it's like, even for someone like yourself, like, you grew up on Forrest Griffin, you were a big fan, watching him and stuff like that. Like, just receiving that call, it just goes to show you like, fuck, like this work is paying off. Like that dream you had as a kid, like that full circle moment, it must be crazy. And now it probably motivates you moving forward for new ideas or businesses or where you see yourself projecting in the future. Like, I mean, if you want to touch on anything that you have upcoming or you're working on right now, feel free to touch on that.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Like, number one, exactly that. Like, you never know when opportunity, and it's tough because like it's such a cliche. People say, "Oh, just don't give up." It's such a I hate it. Like, I hate cliches because there's so much value in them, but they go over our head, right? But the thing is, like, if a cliche is, it means it's a statement that's existed for so long and been true for so long. Like, I mean, in theory, it's like some of the most valuable information, but it's a cliche. It goes over our head. Simple things. Don't give up. Keep going. It's like, yeah, whatever. But it's the truth, right? Like, you only lose when you quit. And if you're still in the game, that's really what it's about, right? You could be a fighter I had a fighter, he was 5-fight losing streak or something like that. We started working together, and this, isn't even a plug, but we started working together. He went on a 7-fight winning streak. Right. And again, is that all to do with me? No, there's other factors involved. I'd like to think I was a help in that, but a lot of people would have quit at 0-1. Oh, I'm not undefeated anymore. Fuck, I'm going to quit. I wanted to be undefeated. Right. 0-2. Maybe this isn't me. 3 in a row. Like, what am I doing? And then he ended up fighting PFL and like really going places. Right. So it's like, you can't stop, and you never know where the opportunity is going to be. I've learned this a lot. Like, through the business side also, it's like there's things you put on a pedestal, like, oh, this is going to be the opportunity that hits. And very rarely is that the one, the unicorn that you see that you're like, this is going to be it. It's rarely the one that is. It's always the random one off to the side. Even with the Forrest Griffin thing, this was through like Twitter. And I think I have 12 followers on like my MindLock. I don't use it at all. But Cody Stamen, the fighter I was working with, it just reposted it on Twitter. And that's where Forrest Griffin had followed me at first. On my 12th. That's why I didn't even believe it. I've literally, like, you can search it up right now. I have not posted on Twitter since maybe 2019, and I had 12 followers, probably still have 12, and he followed me there. And it's like, you literally never know. You never know where it's going to come from. You just have to keep yourself in the game, right? That's just kind of a big part of it. And I think it's a good lesson for everybody, whether you're an athlete, whether you're, trying to climb like the corporate ladder or build a business for yourself, or you're in school. Like, if you believe in it, just do it and keep pushing at it, because there's so many times along the way where people could have quit right before it hit, right? And it's like, you just don't know. You never know when That's why it's so important to have that's another cliche that I hate. Like, be passionate. But again, the passion is what keeps you in the game. Because if you're not passionate, then that's what's going to cause you to quit too early, right? So the passion is kind of like the fuel that keeps you going. You follow the map and you're going to get there, one way or another. So it's just about kind of like keeping yourself in the game and never turning your nose away to certain that's again, kind of back to that white belt mentality. It's not for me, right? This is episode that you guys have recorded?
7 now.
8.
This is 8?
I think it's 8.
Right. Well, again, what if either me or another guest, right? You guys just had the Blue Jays guy,
Roger Ray.
Yeah.
This guy's been on, like, he's probably done press conferences with how many people have seen it, like, in person, online, like hundreds of thousands of people. Like, what does he need to do come being your third guest on a podcast, right? It's easy, but who knows? Maybe out of the 112 people that listened to that first episode, maybe there's 3 of them that are like really pumped about it. And out of those 3, 1, and then he ends up, you never, like, you literally never know. So it's like, you just, my coach used to say all the time, like, opportunities are falling around you at all times, but they're never going to fall into your hands. You have to reach out and grab it, right? There's always opportunities everywhere around you, but they're never just going to fall in your hands. You have to reach out and grab it. And I think that's a philosophy that I've tried to follow a lot of the time too. So yeah, I guess in terms of what's next, like online, on Instagram, TikTok, everything's mind locked everywhere. I just try to post.
Hold the fuck up. I could run through a fucking wall right now. Like, that came to like the Dylan show. Like, you're telling me you're not sitting there like that was like
motivated,
bro, pure and natural. Like, I could fucking run through a wall, dude. I hate to cut you off, but
go for it.
No, dude. Like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I have to say it. Like, if that's not like a pure example of this dude, like just being him, like the raw, like true person that you are, and like how good you could speak to literally anything, like. I mean, like, fuck. Like, that was a prime example. Like, dude, I'm sitting here like, fuck. Like,
I thought I was rambling. I'm like, this is good.
I'm like,
nah,
fuck.
it's motivating, bro. It's actually, it is motivating. Because, like, even with, like, the saying, there's a lot of people who don't believe in motivation, right? They believe in discipline. And that's, like, a factor you're saying about passion. Like, passion takes you on the road, but sometimes people may lose passion along the road, and then motivation falls off, and then it just relies on discipline. And it's, like, you're really good at, like, remembering people kind of where they started or why they started, or just getting them mentally through those like road gaps or those like different potholes along the way. And I think it's beautiful the way you word it. And obviously you're an expert in this field, and it's just, I do think it's an underrated aspect that not a lot of athletes actually think of, or they think it's more of like a mental thing where they may feel like, oh, it could be my game. It couldn't be anything mental. And I feel like that's just such an untapped, beautiful thing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think the goal for no matter what you do, could be work, could be sport, could be like the goal. And it kind of goes back to that conversation I had with my coach when I was 12. Like, the goal should always be to just be the best version of yourself. That's it. Because if you can accomplish that, the likelihood that you accomplish all the other things along the way goes way up, right? If you guys become like the best podcasters that you could possibly be, the guests will come, the views will come. But if you're prioritizing, oh, we got to get this guest, oh, we got to, do this view and say this thing, it doesn't guarantee the other way around, right? So it's like you need to just prioritize growing and learning and developing. And like, I think that's where the satisfaction comes, because there's always more. So how can you guarantee fulfillment, right? If you're a fighter and you made it to the UFC, you always told yourself, okay, like if I can make the UFC, I'll be there. And then you make it and you're like, okay, I'm on my first contract. Like when I get the second one, I'll be good. And then you get your second contract and you're like, but like I need to be ranked. Like I don't want to be another guy. Like I need to be ranked. And then you get ranked. Like, I want there's always more.
Always
and then
levels.
You get the belt. Like, oh, but I want to be champ. Like there's always something else. So the question is how do you find fulfillment from what you're doing? Is to look at yourself and say, I don't know for sure, because you'll never know 100%, but I feel like I got close. Like there's that potential that I had, and I feel like I was able to hit it. And again, everyone's different. It could be, let's say for this podcast, the best version of this podcast might be like no bigger than it is right now. It might be the biggest podcast on the internet in 3 years. Who knows? But we don't know that part. But what we know is if you guys can just be the best version of yourself and create the best show that you can and have the best conversations, when it's all said and done, you're going to feel great about it. Like we rocked it. Or you get to a place where it's way bigger, but you quit early because you burn out, but it could have been even further. That's why it's not even about like success or how far you go. It's all relative to what you're capable of, right? The fighter that makes it into the top 10 of the UFC, but they quit because they burn out, is going to be less satisfied if they had the potential to be a champion than the person that had no business even making the UFC, but they got into top 10 because of the sheer will to do it. They maximized their potential. They had no business being there and they made the top 10. That person is going to be way happier than the person that made the top 10 the same, but they were really destined to be a champion and they never lived up to it. So it's not even about how far you go. It's all relative to what your potential is. That should be everybody's goal, to max out that potential. And if you're not factoring in the mental game to that equation, well, then that's the problem and you're never going to reach it.
Wow. That's fucking Jesus, bro.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I don't even know how to even, like, that's just so much like facts. Like it's so true, because it's like you never hear about that. And it's like nothing, it's not talked about, it's not said, and it's just like true. And I don't know if it's because people are ashamed to talk about it or they're embarrassed to kind of talk about, you know, the mental side of it, because they may seem weak or they may seem like mentally not tough. Or
and that's bullshit. That shit's got to go away, man.
Yeah.
You know, you see all these the post game or whatever, and like, you know, the head coach will come out and talk to the media. You know, the manager of the Jays team will come out and talk to the media, and whatever. Like, what about the mental side of it?
I feel like people feel like if someone reaches out to you, right? And I feel like as an athlete, I'm an athlete and I reach out to you because something happened, whether it's personal life or something. I'm at like a little bump in the road right now. I feel like people, not only would they feel embarrassed about it, but I feel like they don't want to be labeled as like, oh, the guy who has to seek counseling, because you could be looked at like no one knows what you're there for. So it could be like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to be known as the guy that goes to counseling.
But I think that's the part that's got to change.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And it's not the guy who goes to counseling. It's the guy that's a step ahead of you, that's taking care of the mental side of things, and actually had the balls and the power to just be like, you know what? Maybe me and you are at the exact same skill level and we're both plateaued skill-wise, but mentally, if I put myself ahead of you, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because when the lights come on, I'm prepared for it. And like, how can you compare yourself to another person that is just like, I know when those lights come on and Dana White's staring at me in the Contender Series, I know what I'm going to feel. Yeah. I talked about it with my coach, and it's like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I think there's also a sense of what's the alternative, right? Like, stigmas aside, if you're consistently underperforming because you're nervous, you're anxious, you're choking under pressure, what's the alternative, right? It's like, you know, you're overweight, so you don't want to go to the gym because everyone's really fit and they're in their, you know, Lululemon kits, and, you know, you're like self-conscious to go. What's the alternative? Not going, making it worse? Like, sometimes you just have to do it. That's kind of number one. Number two is what Loretto was saying, which is look at it as a competitive advantage, right? You know, I think there's a big stigma around it and a misconception. Like, if I'm working with a mental coach, that labels me that labels me as someone with a mental problem.
That's
right?
What I was saying. People could feel ashamed of that.
Exactly. What I'm trying to get to, and I guess this is kind of like my whole thesis around this thing and my vision and what I'm trying to build with this, is that it's like, treat it as skill building, not necessarily fixing a problem. I would argue that majority, over 50% of the athletes that I work with don't come to me because they have a specific problem. They just are curious around, well, what would it look like if I was better at this? Like, I don't really struggle with anxiety. I have like pretty good confidence, but I've also never worked on it. Like, I'm pretty good right now. What could that look? It's like, imagine if you had a great physique, but you've never worked out and you never thought about your diet. You're like,
I hate those people.
Right? But imagine with that base, what they could do.
Oh, dude. I
right?
tell fucking him all the time, bro. This guy has like the sickest shoulder genetics I've ever seen in my life. And like, man, only if he just went to the gym one time a week. Even if he went one time a week. But, you know, obviously you can't convince everyone it's not for
But it goes
everyone.
back to the white belt mentality, right? Are you a know-it-all, or do you have room to learn? If you're coming into this, you're like, I'm confident, I've never struggled with anything. Okay, it's great that you haven't struggled, but have you elevated? It goes back again to my whole thing of being the best version of yourself, right? You know, you might have a great natural physique, but you've never worked out and you don't manage your diet. Imagine what that could look like if you did. it's going to be unreal, right? So, there's two different ways to look at it. Either you kind of have a problem or a challenge that you want solved. Great. We're there for that. Or you don't necessarily have something you can label and say, oh, this is my problem, but I'm curious. I know that the mental game is at least 50% of my performance. I also know that 0% of what I'm doing is involving the mental game. How much better could I be if I was? And compared to my opponents that still aren't doing it? Because guess what's going to happen in 10 years? Everybody's going to have a mental performance coach. So don't you want to be the one that got on it early? It's like the example I give is like, imagine like strength and conditioning coaches in like the 50s. Like back then, there was no strength and conditioning. There was no like, you do your thing, you play like an MLB game, your cool down is a beer after. Like that's it. Your warm up is a little shoulder shrug and you're good to go. Like there was no sense of sports science, but imagine like the first group of people that did strength and conditioning. Unreal, or a superpower, right? So that's kind of where I see mindset and mental performance now, which is like in 10, 15 years, the way things are trending, everyone's going to have a performance coach. The question is, who was able to get in on that early real estate and have a real competitive advantage? Because if I've got one and you've got one, okay, we're kind of even now. But if I have one and you don't, crazy, right? So, for anyone listening to this and they're like, I've thought about it, but I don't want to be labeled as whatever. There's no labels. It's like going to be coached, right? Like you look at like a GSP, he's an amazing fighter. He's known for his takedowns. Does he just stop drilling? Imagine, he goes in and Faraz, his coach, like, hey, we're going to drill our takedowns. And he's like, no, I'm good at those.
Yeah.
You never say that. You're like, well, I'm good at them, but I'd love to like keep sharpening it and find a new way to do it and find a new setup for it. Like that's that wipeout mentality is I'm good at it, but I keep training it. So if you find yourself like, I have a pretty good mindset, that's a great base. What could that look like if we train it in that specific way?
Yeah.
That's sick. Listen, anyone watching, Dylan, where can they find you? Tell me.
Instagram, everything's on MindLock, at MindLock with an underscore, Instagram, TikTok. I just try to drop like some gems every once in a while, anytime I can, share some clips, like really just like make mindset accessible to everybody. Send me a DM. I'm always checking those. Sometimes people have really great questions or comments. Like I always like going back and forth. Is that something people are scared of too? Is like, what if I just send a DM? Like I'll get back to you like right away. Like there's no stupid question. So, check me out, Instagram, TikTok, got a ton of content there. There's some links that route to other places, have a really cool like school community that, we're building as well. So everything starts with that at MindLock on pretty much all the platforms, except for my 12 followers on Twitter. The one of 12 is Forrest Griffin.
Check out his website that he also made when he was 12.
Yeah. Luckily, I
try
have
to
a
find
different
that.
website.
Yeah.
We've graduated on from Wix.
Nice.
That's good, man. That's good. Listen, anybody who's watching, guys, this is real shit, man. This is Dylan from MindLock here. If you're playing sports, if you feel anxiety or anything to do that you want to talk about sports, make your game even better. If you have zero anxiety or you need more confidence, whatever the case is, this is your guy to go to. Dylan, thank you so much for coming on, man. That was an amazing conversation.
Break the break.